Well, that's it, boys. That's the end. You can tie a bow on it, wrap it up in a nice gift box, because that's the 2022-2023 Premier League season over. Let's break it down. This is Red Card Radio. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening from. Thanks for tuning in. Red Card Radio is a weekly look at the Premier League from three friends who support different clubs. My name is James. I support Arsenal. With me tonight, that is Brad. He supports Chelsea. Down below, that's Sean. He supports Tottenham. Gentlemen, hello. Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Great. My club just gained 5 positions in the table, so I'm very excited.
Oh, we're doing that already. do I have the wrong Premier League table pulled into the episode?
You have the Premier League table as it was Sunday, not at time of recording.
Oh, okay. So should I have brought up? Would you prefer that I have the Sunday one, or would you prefer that I have the Monday one?
We can do Sunday for today.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of that, let's take a look at the Premier League table very swiftly, just to get that out of the way. So. Already decided we're the top 4. It finishes Manchester City first, Arsenal second, Manchester United third, Newcastle United fourth. That third, fourth was the only thing that was up in the air. 5th place was always going to be Liverpool. Brighton did secure a 6th place finish when they drew against Manchester City midweek last. Aston Villa round out the season in 7th. They pip that final European spot away from Tottenham, who finish 8th. Brentford have a fantastic season, finish 9th. Things might have gone off the rails a little bit after, I would say February or so for them. But I think that they should be very proud of the season. Fulham, equally as proud, finishing 10th. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of us had Fulham going down this year. Crystal Palace vibing in 11th. They're pretty happy. They're probably also pretty happy that they finished over London rivals, air quotes, Chelsea, who finished 12th. The very worst finish in I think the Premier League era for them, if I'm not mistaken, or at least their worst finish in
90s,
like 20 years or something like that.
88, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, 88 wouldn't be Premier League. 94 wouldn't be Premier League. 94 is Premier League, so maybe it's not their worst ever, but it's awful. Wolves finish 13th. West Ham finish 14th. They still have a Conference League final upcoming, so they're still in training and doing stuff. Bournemouth 15th. Nottingham Forest 16th. Everton scrape by, skin of their teeth. They survive. So that's 2 years in a row that Everton have survived on the final day, and that means commiserations are in order for Leicester City and Leeds United as they finish 18th and 19th and join Southampton, who will be all falling to the championship next season. Boys, just kind of like a holistic thought about this, but is this what you envisioned when we started the season, like what this league table would look like?
No, I don't think any of us got the correct bottom 3 for sure.
None of us got the correct bottom 3, but I will point out that I did correctly predict the number 1 team and the number 20 team. Those were so I got the top and I got the bottom, but everything in between, I didn't. Leicester City getting relegated is absolutely outrageous to me.
7 years after winning the title.
That's look. I think I looked up a
couple weeks ago.
Episodes ago.
Yeah.
That Blackburn went down something like 3 seasons after, I believe it was. It was something along those lines, and then came immediately right back up. Something along those lines. But yes, going from champion to relegated in a very short amount of time is never a good look.
No, not at all.
And I think the statistic I saw, or like I guess the story part that I saw on Twitter, was that they are the team with the highest wage bill to ever be relegated. Now, of course, that's like inflation affects that. I don't know if it's adjusted for inflation and things like that. And we're spending a lot more on football now than even 5 years ago in terms of salaries and things like that. But I wonder. My question to you guys in our text thread was, do any of these 3 rebound and come back next year? The only one I could see realistically doing it is Leicester. I think Southampton have bigger issues. I think Leeds have bigger issues. But yeah, that was it was a big shock seeing those three were the three. I think.
I think it 100%. Like if you told me to answer that question today, I think I agree with you. But I think we're also going to have to see how many players stay at both of these clubs, all three of these clubs, to make that that become a realistic discussion, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's fair. That's really fair.
If you're losing Daka, Iñiacho, Barnes, Madison, like
Tielemans, yeah, Leicester is about to rock up to the championship with a very different team.
Very young, yeah, and Southampton has a very, very young squad. So how many of those like Premier League prospects do they keep? How many do they let go? Leeds, do they keep on with this American experiment?
The British press is already blaming the Americans that Leeds are relegated.
Oh yeah, not Bamford, but the Americans, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting because you've got a couple of buckets to put players in of like on Leicester, they're going to be dealing with a whole lot more of players who want to leave. And the club probably feel like they probably can use that to counterbalance the balance sheet. You know, they can use that money to help them survive and get championship level players or just restock the cupboard on young players too. I'm sure that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
But then you have like Southampton is the exact opposite, where they may have players who wouldn't mind to stay and bring the club back up. They're young and they're good, and Lavia might want to stay. Who knows? But the other bucket is people that want those players. Like I don't think Lavia is realistically. His agent might slap him if he decides that he wants to stay with them and help them bring him back up. His agent would be like, "You're an idiot." No, we've got plenty of offers on the table that are good.
Southampton might not even be willing to entertain that. Like if they've got assets that they can sell. The one thing that Southampton really does have going well for them is that they have a productive academy. And so historically they've been churning players out. And so that's something that I'm sure they will continue to lean into. And you know, I do think that analogy of like where do these players fall into, like what kind of what are they trying to accomplish in their career, things like that. You know, I think Leicester is going to be the most changed team between their starting 11 in between seasons. I think Leeds also has a lot of players that I think could get poached.
Are just going to get poached. I think that's the best way to describe their the bucket their players are in, as I think they're just going to get poached. Where, again, players may be willing to stay, but I don't think their agents are going to let them because they have solid offers on the
Bamford.
board, so.
I could see a team like Brentford, who Ivan Toney is suspended through like January. Like
No.
You couldn't. You're telling me you couldn't slot Bamford in there? I mean, no. I understand that they're different players. I understand that Bamford is sometimes Bumford, but
sometimes, all the time. But that's not Brentford's MO anyways. Brentford's going to buy some kid from Germany, third Bundesliga, who's going to come in and swat 40 goals next summer.
I know we've talked about it before, but you mentioned Southampton's academy and their youth players and their success with that. And it's something you know and you easily recall, but when you see it on paper and they've got Virgil van Dijk and I'm gonna blank on a lot of Mane and a couple of players that we went got Wanyama and it's just kind of, it's almost jarring where you're like, oh my gosh, how did they let all of those people slip away? You know, at that level.
Well, no, they developed them, then they sold them,
and then your guy, Ben White? No, that was no, that's Brighton. That was Brighton.
Also, you guys are ignoring Theo Walcott. I think I'm fairly certain that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain also graduated from Southampton.
Like the Pochettino Saints were I was thinking of.
Yeah, Gareth Bale came at some point through Southampton. Adam Lallana. I'm just okay.
Lallana was on that team, yeah.
Yeah.
You still have to put Ward Prowse in there too, like as a recent one.
And
Yeah.
Ben Reeves. These are just I pulled up their Wikipedia and like I'm just Luke Shaw, just quickly looking, like Callum Chambers, Andy Robertson. Like there are a lot of players that like you just look at and you're like, okay, that they've produced a lot. Matty Target.
Ironically, like that was me and a couple of friends had a manager mode that we chose Southampton when they came up, and they had Pochettino, and we correctly identified, wow, this team's really young, and when you're playing with the players and winning games, they advance in FIFA a whole lot faster and to their full potential. So like 2 or 3 years down the road, we have a squad like
Oh yeah.
the play on FIFA, and that was really fun. But now seeing them actually do that on the real pitch was pretty cool to see. But it was all the little players that we just named, including some others. Maya Yoshida, I believe, was a good center back for a while.
Yeah, they have produced quite a number of players since 2000. So
yeah, and
that's
they're restocking this year.
Yeah,
and I think the goal was like we can restock, we can get some young assets in, and fight through this relegation battle, and hopefully make it through, and then in 2-3 years sell these kids on.
And I think that's what they do. Yeah, I think they just lean into the academy. That'll be interesting. I guess now's a good point to kind of counter the relegation with the promotion. So we did mention last week that Burnley and Sheffield United were confirmed coming up through the Championship League table. But then we had the EFL Championship playoff match between Luton Town and Coventry. And that game ended 1-1. Had to go to penalties to be decided, and Luton Town, Brad's pick to come up, win on penalty 6-5. The Coventry player misses a penalty, puts it over the crossbar to fail to even the score, and so Coventry will remain in the championship. It will be interesting to see, because last year the team that lost the championship playoff was Huddersfield Town, and if I'm not mistaken, they just got relegated to League Two, or to League One. To League One. So it'll be interesting to see how Coventry react to this. How are we feeling about those three coming up into the Premier League? Burnley, Sheffield United, and Luton Town.
I want Luton Town to survive. Put it out there right now. Luton Town is finishing 17th next year.
It was funny that we have a friend in the friend group who unfortunately was talked into by the City fan into being also a City fan. So that was an unfortunate loss that we didn't keep him away from the dark side. But he is actively learning and actively openly learning. So I explained to him that Luton Town are promoted, and it's a really cool story. It's a really cool stadium, and they're like in the neighborhood, and they have to basically spend $10 million almost as soon as they have to spend basically $10 million. And he was like, "Oh, is that bringing in a couple of new players?" I was like, "No, that's to get the stadium up to like code, like EPL code. Like that's for camera locations. That's for the announcing booth. It's
for the ticketing, like turnstiles and the entrance. Like one of the entrances needs to be completely
the neighborhood.
It's like next to houses. Like they took over like 2 or 3 houses and turned it into like turnstiles, and like that's not that ain't cutting it.
Wait. Do you know what their budget was last year? Like their entire operating budget?
I don't know, Brad.
$10 million.
Oh wow! So they automatically have to double it off.
Well, no, not only do they have to double it, like imagine having a $10 budget. Like that's all you had, and somebody just came up to you and gave you $175.
Yeah.
Like Nottingham Forest makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
Like $175 million when you could only spend $10 million beforehand. Because Forest's expenses were probably low, right? They didn't have to spend $10 million on a stadium. So when they got all this extra money, they're like, well, we buying people then. Let's go.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, I'm
that's right.
100. Luton Town was non-football 9 years ago, less than a decade.
Yeah.
And this isn't a FIFA save where you can become
Yeah.
League Two to Champions League in 9 years. This is like real life football where you can where it's hard. It's so hard
Well,
to move leagues.
we all pointed that out when Forest came back up at the over the summer that Forest are ready. They're an EPL club. They're an EPL size club. The stadium was ready. They're ready to go. That was move-in ready. So yeah, you're right. They could afford to just simply add to the roster, just simply make the team better. Where I believe it was a couple of years ago, Burnley used the tactic of they came up and used their entire budget on upgrading the stadium and did not buy any players and rolled the dice that were going to stay, and that didn't work. They got relegated, and then came up 2 years later or the following year,
They did the roller coaster.
and then invested in the field, and then made it a number of years before they just recently went down. But that's certainly a style that I'm sure Luton Town are probably going to take advantage of, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure that they will be spending big, and I would imagine that their squad, in the same sense I said about I think Leicester's squad will be very different compared to the Premier League to the Championship. I think that Luton Town, you could see a similar situation where their team is very different from the Championship to the Premier League, much like Nottingham Forest this year.
I can't remember his name. Oh no, I will look up his name and that will be the trivia. But there's a player on Luton Town that was there when they were a non-professional side. I need him to stay and play a match in the Premier League, so we can complete his evolution to a Premier League player. So everybody else can leave. I forget his name, but I want him to play at least one game in the Prem. Get that legendary status.
Yeah,
that's. I mean, I guess Vardy did it, but he's done it. But this guy's done it with one club. He stayed with Luton Town.
Yeah.
Because before, the changing rooms were like porta potties.
That's
what we had first.
I want to see the all or nothing and see what the changing rooms are at that stadium.
We need a Premier League all or nothing.
Yeah, a kick to survive or something like that. I don't know. We still need to.
We'll get the ideas together and we'll send it. We'll send it to you. Amazon, just
Netflix, whoever it is.
Netflix, yeah.
Red Card Radio Productions presents.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes at Luton Town.
There we go. All right. Just anything else stands out to you in this Premier League season? Do you have any overreactions about any of these teams? Any underreact? What is the most shocking league position to you?
Well, besides Newcastle, Villa made Europe. I think Newcastle getting top four is the most shocking one. So, if we're going to take that off the table, because I think we should, because I think we all agree, none of us saw Newcastle top four. I don't even think Joel saw Newcastle top four. He was like, top 10 and a good cup run, and I'm good.
No, his goal, he said at the beginning of the year, he said, my goal is Europe. I don't care if it's Europa. I don't care if it's Conference League. I don't care which Europe. We deserve. We have the team for top 7. I expect to finish there. And I don't think he was expecting this competition, the Champions League. So he'll take that. But I do know that he said he expects Europe, period.
I mean, for me, the most shocking league position is obviously Chelsea. That to me is the most shocking. I would also honorable mention, I think Aston Villa is interesting, just based on the way their season started, but Brighton. I'm most impressed by Brighton.
Did you relegate them this year?
Last year I had them relegated. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, my take last year was time has run out on Graham Potter, and Brighton's getting relegated. That was my take.
Just a year early on Graham Potter.
I wasn't even a year early on Graham Potter because he got a glow up. He moved up this year, and I think that also speaks to my thought about Brighton is that they got eviscerated early in the season, absolutely, their manager, a lot of their first team coach and staff and stuff like that got ripped out. They lost players over the summer, and then they bring in a new coach, and De Zerbi has been a absolute revelation for them in the same sense that Unai Emery has for Villa. The Premier League did announce that Pep won Manager of the Year, and I think that's a terrible award.
That's because he's going for the trouble. It really should be Arteta or Eddie Howe.
I don't think it should be Arteta. I think a shout for Eddie Howe is up there, but honestly I think Unai Emery should have won Manager of the Season because of just like what he took over.
In the relegation zone when he took over.
Yeah. And
great. It's a little easier when they have a fairly quality roster. Like,
they have a good team.
Overachieved with them. I'll give them that. But they're a mid-table team.
Their pay scale, I think their wage bill is 7th highest in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the way you look at it is like who at the beginning of the season who's below them you expected to finish above them. It was Tottenham, Chelsea. You expected to finish above them, and then maybe Leicester. I think coming into the season we would have thought about that 7th position and been like Leicester, Villa, maybe West Ham, something like that. Like I think those were the teams that we would have probably thought about fighting for that 7th. Newcastle, something like that.
Yeah.
So in the sense that it was Villa that does it, I think is that to me is why I'm so impressed. I was so impressed by Unai Emery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever. So like, yeah, I think he got memed to death at Arsenal. I don't think he was given the proper tools, but he is an awesome, excellent manager.
There's a lot of things that were stacked against him at Arsenal. The biggest being the backroom staff and what he inherited. Like it's always impossible to take over for a legendary manager, for like a statue outside the ground kind of manager, right? Like so, like Arsene Wenger, like Sir Alex Ferguson. It's impossible to be the next person after them. So
you're not going to last long.
Yeah, unless you just win a lot,
right?
But even still, like the pressure is probably still
high.
pretty high.
And maybe this is gonna be rude, but like Chelsea was too big of a job for Graham Potter. Maybe it was too big of a job for Unai. Maybe this is where like David Moyes, Manchester United was too big of a job for David Moyes. I
wonder about Graham Potter.
I think Graham Potter deserves another shot. I think I don't think he was necessarily set up for the success at Chelsea that like I was hoping he would be, because I was like I'm still a little salty that they cut him when they did. Like, there was no point to cut him at that point. Like we weren't playing for anything. The chance to beat Real Madrid, but you don't bring in Frank to beat Real Madrid.
Yeah, you were upset that they fired Tuchel. Like so at a baseline, you were upset when Tuchel got fired. That was out of left field. That was absolutely out of left field.
Apparently, there was a lot of shit happening behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that caused that has now started to come to light.
Yeah. Which we don't want to necessarily get into because some of it is salacious and we don't know the veracity of some of these claims. Maybe we should wait for some more investigative journalism before
Tuchel's a thug.
Before we start slandering people.
But yeah, like there was chaos. Everything that was built with Tuchel and around Tuchel was ripped away.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Bruce, Marina, Peter Cech.
Well, a lot of that, a lot of that was old guard stuff. Like a lot of that was Abramovich era stuff that Bowley was always going to come in and he was going to put his people in place.
Correct, and he also didn't get to put those people in place until September, October, November. So like Bowley as our DOF was probably what destroyed this season.
Yeah, he did come in and expect that he was going to be able to just handle everything, which was not the case.
Like this summer was very, very wasn't that great, but we've gone through that a lot. Like props him for stepping up and trying.
I don't know. I have opinions about this Chelsea summer because at the time you thought this Chelsea summer was the best thing since sliced bread. You were super jazzed about Chelsea's transfer business until February.
I'm always hyped though.
Yeah.
I wasn't. No, it wasn't February. It was like October.
No, get out of
November.
here. No, stop.
Okay, maybe it was after the January window when the January window was so much better.
Just a couple quick notes upcoming. We are going to talk about the FA Cup final in tomorrow's episode. We've got one news episode coming for you this week. This week is just going to be the review episode, which you're getting today on Wednesday, and then the news episode tomorrow. We don't have a preview for you. Brad's got something to say. And
when you're watching this, after you've done listening to us talk, please make sure you tune in to watch Jose lift the trophy.
Yeah, that was my next point. That was my next point, Brad. I was going to mention that the day that you're listening to this on Wednesday is the Europa League final between Sevilla and Roma. Jose is starting his ladder climb. So that's Red Card Radio's pick for the Europa League, and also we're also rooting for Fiorentina in the whatever the other one is called, the Conference League,
Europa Conference League.
Yeah,
yes.
we want Sean's head to explode with all the Italian teams winning.
Yes.
Maybe some of you guys want Inter to win. I do not, but that's we will.
I could go for Megan Thee Stallion's new man.
But yeah, so check out the Europa League tomorrow, or today actually, as you guys are watching it, and we will preview the FA Cup for you tomorrow. But thanks for sticking with us so far this season. Definitely check back tomorrow. Ring the sub notification bell, subscribe, follow, 5-star, drop a comment down below. Join our Discord. It's in the description of the video. Hit us up on Twitter. That guy, KS Brad G. Down below is at Whiteheart_Sean. I'm at James Tiffany. Collectively, we are at Redcard_Radio. And we'll be back tomorrow with a news and FA Cup preview for you. Definitely don't want to miss it. But until then, have a good one.